Matt Gilmore sitting in for Aaron Rand today. David Heurtel joins me now to talk about the day in politics. Political analyst and former Liberal MNA for excellence, for excellent home comfort systems. Call Guaranteed Industries and ask about the Canair climate control systems. 514-342-3400, serving Montrealers since 1957. David, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Matt.
Okay, so we heard Colton Prale in the newscast there talking about the Premier's meeting with Mark Carney there in Saskatoon. I want to ask you sort of first what it is that the Prime Minister is hoping to gain from this meeting, and then what François Legault and the other premiers are themselves hoping to get out of it.
Well, I think first and foremost, the Prime Minister's objective is to try to create a better sense of Canadian unity. He is going to work very hard over the next few months on a huge, massive plan to restart the Canadian economy. And so he promised to do so during the election campaign. It's 5 weeks ago today that he was elected, and so he has to move fairly quickly. He met with the oil and gas industry yesterday, which is a big signal that he knows that Canada's future economically is going to have to deal with energy. And when you're talking about energy, you're going to talk about fossil fuels, but other types of energy as well, renewables, hydro. And you have to get provinces on side. And I think that's goal number one, to show that he is leading with the provinces. And when he rolls out all these very important spending plans and investments over the next few months, especially when we come back after the summer break, I think that's goal number one, to restart the economy and to transform the economy because it's so sluggish. You saw, Matt, last week. I mean, the GDP numbers are sluggish at best. The unemployment numbers aren't good. Inflation isn't doing well. You have to be very careful when you look at the inflation numbers. Housing and food is up. The only thing that's keeping inflation down is the cost of gasoline. So you need some massive programs, and what Ontario, Western Canada, and actually the world is looking for is more energy from Canada.
And on the same token, François Legault is there, with apparently a long list of expensive infrastructure projects. What can he hope to gain from this meeting?
Well, you have to understand, François Legault is going into an election year next year. And just 5 weeks ago, Mark Carney basically would not be in power today without Quebec. 42% of Quebecers, including a plurality of francophones, voted for the Liberals. With over 42% of the vote in Quebec. That's more than with 43% of the vote, rather. That's more than what François Legault did when he swept back into power in 2022. François Legault is in a weakened position. Philippe J. Fournier on his website shows that if an election were held tomorrow, the CAQ would have 4 seats. They'd be fifth out of 5 parties. And so François Legault desperately needs a win here, and he needs to be able to use these conditions. And when I was environment minister back in 2014, I established 7 conditions for Quebec to accept a pipeline. And basically what François Legault is talking about right now, his conditions are those same 7 major conditions. And so he is setting up Quebec for a negotiation. He's talking about getting federal funding for the transmission lines between Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec, which is key for the new Churchill Falls deal. Also, there could be other projects, but also other types of ways to position Quebec to negotiate for a deal for a pipeline, which could mean, for example, looking at this, in the 1980s, Quebec positioned itself and got federal funding, massive federal funding, that created what today is Quebec and especially Montreal's aeronautics industry. It's the same thing we could do now for artificial intelligence. The fact is that we are going to need more energy, more projects. We're not only talking about a pipeline, we're talking also about LNG. There's a massive project that was turned down by the Legault government for the Lac Saint-Jean region. That could come back on the table as well. We could look at to bring down trade barriers between provinces, maybe some concessions on the protection of French. Maybe the feds put money on the table so that Legault takes down the more trade barriers but gets money from the federal government to protect French. Because that is considered a trade barrier in and of itself. So there's on immigration, for example, on healthcare. The federal government still hasn't gotten nearly close to what its fair share is about funding healthcare. So there's a lot of different issues that Legault can use as a bargaining chip in exchange for the pipeline and other oil and gas projects. But let's just remember, again, 5 weeks ago today, close to two-thirds of Quebec voters voted for two parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, that explicitly said they were in favor of more oil and gas projects, including pipelines. So Quebecers have decided this. And for François Legault to even think about his political survival next year, he's going to have to play ball very quickly with the feds and the rest of the provinces.
Yeah. I want to very quickly, before we wrap up, ask you about this RBC fraud story that was reported in La Presse this morning. 220 customers, probably more according to the police, fell into this trap of scammers. And it may even look like there's an employee of RBC that was sort of helping the scammers. So, RBC's apparently not, really responding to these requests to be reimbursed. But these are people who are out thousands of dollars. What could be done here to sort of make sure that these customers are made whole?
Well, I think we still need to be better educated about fraud. And we have to understand how sophisticated these scams are. And when you're looking at over 200 people and who knows more, and, we saw everything that happened with Desjardins and other banks. It's not just RBC. And so it's the response also, understanding that RBC and the banks and the financial sector, they have to be much more proactive, I think, in educating customers and establishing mechanisms so people don't fall into these traps that are set. And also, it's just the way, the attitude that is reported by La Presse with regards to the way RBC treats its customers. Once again, let's work together. The customer is not the person responsible for this, and so you have so many of these stories, Matt, where people, when they call their banks, they're made to feel like they were the culprits or they're somehow idiots, and they're left to fend for themselves. And I think banks have to take a much bigger proactive responsibility in first educating the customers, but also how to better respond and understanding that they have a responsibility to do so.
All right. Thank you very much, David.
All right. Take care.
That's David Heurtel, political analyst and former Quebec Liberal MNA.